Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Ryan Leonard podcast, where we talk about all things that have to do with existence. If you are a fan of existence and understanding it and knowing why we're here, please click the little like button and subscribe. It'll get you more information. You probably wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in that kind of stuff. So just keep the good times going. Today, we have a really awesome guest. Her name is Bobbie Richardson. Bobbie is a seer, much as her mom was, and got that kind of gift passed down right there. And as a channeler and a sort of contactee, you are an artist of all sorts of different things, as we were just talking about, singer-songwriter, creator here on YouTube, and with your new channel, Codes to New Reality, that we'll have a link to there down below with all your information, so people can get in touch there. Bobbie, if you want to take it from there, we got so much going on in the world, and take it from, as far back as you want to start your childhood, or, when you started being a steer and experiencing things, and go from there, yeah.
Yeah, I actually tried to put my whole life in that together in a video, and it ended up being 8 videos. So I don't think that's what happens today. But
Fortunately,
I just had so many experiences starting from when I was a kid. I was contacted. There was a Kaikoura UFO thing that happened where a reporter went up in a plane and actually followed a UFO. That was, I think, on channel. We only had one channel, I think, at that time in New Zealand, and then it followed them all the way to Christchurch. And my little town is Kaibwe, which is just before Christchurch, and then it stopped just before Christchurch. And I ended up having an experience pretty much around the same time. I could have said it was exactly the same night because I was just a kid and I didn't really take much notice, but very, very similar time zone. And I did have this experience of this UFO saying, "Oh yeah, we found you," which was fairly bizarre coming from a kid. That was just like,
the way you heard them, like, hey,
I was an emotional wreck as a kid, so I didn't understand what was going on. But from there, I mean, that's one story. I just have so many stories. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah, so I ended up having a lot of visions, and visions to me is something outside myself. So I'd wake up and actually see things. It got way too much around my 30s, and I just said, right, this is just too much. And I've been woken up like twice or 3 times a night. And they said, you'll have to take the reins. So I took the reins, and they said, if you're taking the reins, you have to ask the questions. So I started asking questions about, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if school's right about history. This just feels wrong. So if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong, whatever. If it's a crazy-ass story, it's a crazy-ass story. Just be open to what comes through. And it took about 10 years for these different beings coming to me with their story. So I had all these different beings. They had like 2 years each, and then there would be a break for a year, and then there was 2 years for another being. We started off with the reptilians, and the reason why they came in first is because that set me up for the others. If I could face the fear of the reptilians, which was my own fear, then it set me up to be able to have this communication with these other beings. That was some of them are pretty powerful. And that when that happened, I ended up having them coming towards me, and one of the stories was pretty powerful, and I could see it was like for real, like this being came and sat on my bed, put his arm around my neck, tried to press 2 pills in my mouth, and I was thinking to myself, no, this isn't going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get myself out of this, but this is not going to happen. I just had this adamant knowing about myself. And I believe all humanity has this ability within them, where all my chakras fall into one ball of light just below my heart chakra and my sacral chakra, and just exploded into one white light, and then it was gone. And I ran outside. It was in the middle of the night, put my hands in the earth. I just automatically knew to do that. And then I went back inside and went to sleep. But I knew then they had no power over me, so they taught me that, which ended up bringing in a whole heap of other things. So I ended up having the Pleiadians coming in. And then after the Pleiadians came in with their version of the history of humanity, then there was the Anunnaki, and then there was the Lyrans. So I had all this understanding from different frequencies and different versions of humanity's history, and pulled together a bit of a story from there. So that was pretty crazy. That's just one side of it. There's also other things that have happened as well throughout all of that. I met a Cherokee elder, for real. I said to my team, I need somebody who can help me on this journey. And they said, well, you don't need it. And I said, yes. Yeah, I changed the story. I need it. And I ended up having really crazy synchronicities that brought me in alignment with this Cherokee elder that was doing a soaring around Australia at the time. And I ended up in Bay, and she pulled me out of a crowd, and she put her hands on my head. Now, I'd already been showing about how to still the mind and years before, and I'd lost that advantage. And when she put her hands on my head, stilled my mind for about 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, you've got my attention. And we ended up working together for quite a few years. And then, so I met her in 2006. And she ended up holding my hand and talking to me telepathically for over an hour. So we've got all these different stories going in between everything. So I knew telepathy was for real. And that was really needed, because this is where humanity's going to now. We're starting to realize we have way more power coming towards us. And telepathy is the first thing, because it's an expansion of one, understanding that they can find wisdom outside of the contents of a book or some, social structure that's been put in place that keeps you in a loop. You have that ability to be able to connect with the wildlife, the nature, and have all this other information pouring through you, your own soul and your own soul's journey and that sort of thing. Other beings that are connected to your soul and that sort of thing. It's so much more expanded. So then we end up with all this other wisdom that comes when we don't know where, but it is part of who we are. There's an awareness of that. It is, as a cup of tea. It's an absolute, if I held up my cup of tea, which I think is love, then, that tea, that actually exists. So too does this wisdom. It feels that way when you receive it. Yeah, I've also been taken to Uluru, which is a sacred mountain here, through crazy synchronicities of having dreams.
I think I know what it is.
It
always come up in videos I've watched about mysterious Australia type of stuff.
Right, yeah. So that's another, these stories, I'm only giving you little teeny snippets of the stories, but they are much broader than that. There's a lot that went on. But I had a premonition dream of being in Uluru, and then the very next morning on my emails was David Icke is going to Uluru, and he's going to choose 20 people out of thousands in the audience that would put their hands up to go with them to Uluru. And I was the first one pulled out of the hat. They said that. They told me that on the bus.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going because I'd just been there in my dream. And I had to go there for that specific moment of time, to be there for purpose of this. I literally ended up in the mountain, and I downloaded all of these dreams and psychic visions and stuff of humanity's potential, where we could go to, what we could do, what we could ground in this world. And when I was in that space, my mind was completely still, no monkey chatter whatsoever, just clarity. And that's where these abilities of being telekinetic and all that fifth dimensional stuff is also at our disposal. Because going back to the history of humanity, and what they were showing me was, we are the collaboration of earth beings, humanoids that Earth actually grew, and then DNA manipulation by these other beings. And so we are the so-called sons of gods. We are gods in creation. That's how the elder put it. She was like, from Ohio, she said, well, she's now in Arizona. She said, what would you call those children who are, children who are actually born from God? So they are sons of God. So, but they're not actually gods as in such as the way that we see a god. It is a benevolent being of immense power, understanding, long history, understanding their soul's lineage and all sorts. They have a lot more in that, but they're still missing things. There's still things within their reality that they're missing. So the actual draconian gender and the Lyran gender had to come together, and there was a war that went on because they had got to the pinnacle of the draconians were more to do with creating through consumerism in a very grounded way. And the Lyrans were creators of, with their esoteric, means of understanding things. So there was missing bits within them, and then they come to Earth one after the other. They didn't come together at the beginning. That's what I was told. And then they ended up creating, with manipulation of. And they thought that they both owned rights of humans.
Mhm.
Well, humans are going on their own journey. So at one stage we were sort of led by the Lyran, Palladian, more feminine agenda, which was the Lemuria age. And so we were more learning all about our connection to source and God and all everything to do with the feminine aspects of humanity, intuition, imagination, all of that stuff. But it was more of an etheric kind of a place. And then we ended up having a break and getting used to that. They left the Palladians in charge during that time. And then, so they're kind of like cousins to us. Then when they left, then we ended up bringing in the, because we wanted to learn more of how to ground all of this and create outside of us. So to do that, though, it was messing up a lot because we didn't have full awareness of ourselves in that moment. And so it was kind of like a toddler trying to play with matches. And in the end, because of that, a war happened, and the Anunnaki draconian agenda came in and took over, because we were then, through our evolution, learning all about our logical outside of ourselves, masculine side.
Yeah.
So just coming out of that, and now we're going back into, they always show it as a Taurus energy with me. So it's like the first part of the Taurus energy of humanity was all about Atlantis, and then we cross over to the persecution of anything feminine, the witches and so forth, so-called witches, those that hold the codes of humanity, and then that we come back into the full circle. And I actually had a really powerful moment on the 20th of 2020. It was, March 2020, where I ended up seeing Earth coming into the vortex, and I didn't even know what a Taurus field was. I just saw it happen, and I've got to investigate what this all means. But it was like Earth coming into this vortex, and the central point of the vortex is source energy itself, but it's also a void. So this is all to do with now humanity coming back to learning how to still one's mind, to connect to the void, to be able to create something new. Because everything started with the void, and everything will return back to the void, or it's just love itself going on a journey, and we start creating a whole other experience. So it's pretty powerful, but when we go through that that cut, they call it the eye and the needle. Everything that isn't in alignment with the love of self has to be shattered, it has to peel away. And if you're holding on to it, it's going to be a horrible story. If you're going to hold on to those things that you think are you, but they are not, guilt, shame, all of that we self-talk to ourselves, it's going to be a hard story as we go through fear and that sort of thing. But in the end, we'll start to realize we don't need to hold on to those stories, which is a program pulled over us to keep us in limited consciousness so that we didn't meddle in other realms while we were going through this lesson. Yeah, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, no, that really is. I just really quickly, just on what you just said. Now, I want to ask you some about history of the earth here from the different
It's
or
quite
pieces of information you've had there. Yeah, I have always said this, and I hear people say all the time when you see people that are angry and fuming about something, and I say it to myself too, because you can't always just turn off and on your emotions about stuff. Like, I know up here this is stupid, and I still feel really upset about it.
yeah.
But I've seen people in this setting before. It's like, you don't need to feel angry at this person continuously. Forgiveness doesn't mean you said it's okay. It just means, like, kind of, I'm letting it go. I'm moving on from the situation. I don't need to remain feeling angry about this. But there's this idea that society gives us that when like stimulation or stimuli A happens, your reaction is supposed to be this. You're supposed to get angry. You revenge on that person. Texas Wild Wild West, and get a gun and shoot somebody type of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so much programming that you get from the time you're a child till you wake up, that like, here's how you're supposed to deal with things, that really goes exactly opposite to what our spiritual nature is about everything.
Yes, because that programming was all to do with looking outside of ourselves. So if we haven't controlled what's in, like, they haven't controlled their inner thoughts. So what they do is try to project that and control it out here. And that's why they get angry. If I get angry, then I'm in control.
Right.
But they're not in control. The whole reason why they're getting angry is because they're not in control in their thoughts. So if you come back at that, you're a resistance to that, then they have something to push against. And so you end up both doing this. So I always say, if you just let it go as much as what you can. Yes, you might feel it. Just feel into what you're feeling, because that could be something that they're bringing up for you to go, to look at the lesson within yourself of how do I navigate this emotion of my own. It's not them, they're not giving it to you. You're the one that it came from you. The response came from you. And so what are you not controlling within yourself? So I'd go back, turn it inwards. All of this is setting us up so that we can find the stillness within ourselves, so we can up level into these higher dimensions, bring back the magic, the feminine magic side of things. But yeah, so I always see it as it's a moment in my mind that I've lost myself for a bit. And I get into my emotions. I feel it. It's my empathy that feels it. And then I see it as it's not mine. Return it back, or it is mine, and take it on and learn the lesson. And then I just move on as quickly as I can. I've learned that my team's learned to bring me into sacral space as quickly as I can. That was through this really cool story when I was in New Zealand. I was 27, and they were coming into my mind where I was really negative. I was everything's just going to go wrong. It's going to be cold. I had a fiance at the time. I was going to go off, take photos, leave me on my own, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't like this trip. I don't want to be here. And then in my head, it's this subtle voice, well, why don't you just think more positively? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And then they're like, why not? No one else knows what's going on in your head but you. So why not just give it a go? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And we ended up just parking along a beach. The beaches are everywhere in New Zealand. Obviously, it's an island, so there's no like car park or anything. It's just sand dunes. There's no other cars in sight or anything. So we parked there because they saw something that he wanted to take a photograph of. This subtle voice that is in my head: open the car door and dig. And so I opened the car door and I dug 3 inches into the sand a solid gold bracelet. working $1,000, yeah.
Wow.
And then like, okay, I think I should listen to this subtle voice that's going on in my head. And they took me on this journey for a couple of years of how to focus on controlling my mind. And they just kept on bringing me back to controlling my, no matter what happened. And I had some pretty awful things happening outside of me. But I think it was like they wanted to show, even if you were, like I had somebody after a gig, because I was a singer-songwriter, and jump on my bonnet on my car saying he was going to rape me and all sorts of things. It was pretty horrific stuff. Yeah. And yet they're saying, come back to love, come back to the love of yourself. And then they wanted to show me that's how powerful I am. I needed to get to that point where no matter what happened outside of me, if I can bring myself back to my central state of awareness, that I am in control of my emotions and my thoughts, then what comes next is gifts. Like I started to have foresight and premonitions of what was going to happen and all of that sort of stuff. I started to be able to navigate my world around these nasty bits, and use them as boundaries rather than get entangled into them and that sort of thing. So yeah, it becomes a lot easier.
With those being like your intentions that you had moving forward, like I always ask everybody, did you have any particular like meditation techniques you were using? Because there's all these different things that everybody learns from all these different people, and visioning colors and visioning numbers, all sorts of stuff. Was there anything special that you were doing, or was it just kind of more like trying to be in that mindset of things?
Yeah, it was more during that time, just being in the mindset and listening to, I had these subtle voices coming into, and I listened to them because I found the God bracelets.
Yeah, yeah.
And we all have
True.
these subtle voices coming in. There was moments in time where I was asked to learn the Merkaba. I learned the Merkaba meditation. I got there was a last step that you only found if you actually do the Merkaba. I went through all of that at one stage, and then I leave it. But I don't hold on to anything. I don't make something, this has to be for the rest of my life or anything like that, because it leaves you open to learning through new experiences. So I'm constantly just allowing the process. And now I don't meditate unless I feel a call to. Sometimes my team will go, you need to meditate at this moment. There's something you need to be in a stillness so that we can activate this and do this. Like just recently, I ended up being called to New York. That was crazy. Like my whole life around me just sort of crumbled, and I was like, all my gear's getting put in storage. I am now house sitting. Now, what the heck is going on? You know, the relationship crumbled, never really got to go anywhere, and I'm like, what's going on? Next minute, people that I'd helped over in New York that had just were befuddled by me wanted me to come to New York and do talks. And so everything, all expenses paid, I ended up flying to New York and doing three presentations. But one of them ended up being right at the base. We didn't even notice this until right, near the close to the time on the 3rd of May this year. We're like, oh my God, we're right at ground zero. She had found this cafe pretty much underneath ground zero, right next to ground zero in New York. And I'm like, okay, well, this is all meant to be. So I was downloaded that then a specific meditation. And then I was using that at ground zero to fire up the feminine side for New Yorkers, because that place on earth is very logically based, very everything being outside you, And so they have had floods ever since we left there. They've had floods and earthquakes since, because there's a big shake-up going to happen, because I, instigated that new feeling into that location. And I know that there was others around the world that were being driven to different places, like Egypt and all that. That's time as well. There's a specific moment around the 3rd of May that we were activating things. So yeah, it's really interesting how things happen. So I don't have, my logical mind still has a bit of fear of, oh my God, where am I going to end up? I don't know, and I don't have this and I don't have that. And but always I have this settling feeling of it's always worked out. I've never ended up in the gutter. Let's put it that way. I've always ended up surrounded by beauty and yeah, and now lovely people are coming into my reality as well. So
That's absolutely wonderful to hear. Yeah, I'm gonna jump backwards a little bit. I want to go back to you. You had said, you had learned about the history of the human race and Earth, from different groups. And it sounded like you said had different perspectives on it, kind of.
yes.
Would you mind going into a little more detail of when you say different perspectives, a person would say like, well, if there's two Greeks looking at the same Earth, how can they have two different perspectives on what's going on? Can you unpack that, kind of what that all means for us? And then from everything you've got, guys like me, I'm into like, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and guys that are all about, uncovering the history, the hidden archaeology and history that's been covered up by people like the Smithsonian. What's your impression of the history, like where within the humans and all of that good stuff?
That's a lot.
I know it's a lot. That's what I'm saying. Whatever. There's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just
That's no what. That's right. We'll go with the cat.
answer. We have unlimited time.
Yeah. Okay. So each of these different beings had their own perspective of where they're coming from. That's why they have a different take on humanity. Where the Palladians would be more on, well, we can remember Atlantis and Lemuria, and sharing all of that wisdom on how to manifest things in real time and do the dancing with their self and understand you have a connection with her as well as the higher beings and all of this, and you're open and expansive and. Yeah, but then the Anunnaki, all to do with structure and the logical side. So we have this in our brains, that right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, and that's literally the split. That source energy is divided in within humanity's consciousness. So they are more to do with, when they came through, they were to do with everything in a very grounded, practical, and they came through as very powerful beings. Did you want me to tell you the experience of them showing up?
That would be great. Yeah, because that's something. Some people talk about all these different kind of races interacting with Earth at the same time, all the time. And then you have different people that are like, well, no, specific people here during different time periods and different things happen. So that's why I'm totally interested. Yeah, I'd love to hear what the story of them and your interaction.
Yeah, the actual year that it happened, I think it was 214. I'm not going to be able to guess that, 214, 250. I've written it down somewhere, but it's sort of packed. So I had the name number 444 kept coming up everywhere. Like I did one trip, 1 hour, and saw it like 6 times, and went, oh, hang on a sec, this is all pretty much something's going on here. That night, I ended up waking up and I saw an orange UFO. It was only small, but it was outside my bedroom window. And it was kind of like a light ball, but in the shape of a UFO. And I see things anyway, so I thought, maybe I'm seeing that. So I just kind of leave it. But then the next morning on my in my hometown Facebook page, someone else said, did anyone else see the orange UFO last night?
Yeah.
Okay, that's for real. So we know that's for real now. And then the very next night, I woke up to 4 massive beings in my bedroom. So my bedroom was very tall. The ceilings, it was a 100-year-old house, very tall ceilings. These would have been, I would say, about 8 foot tall, really tall.
Yeah.
They were clothed and they had pearly dark hair that came down, and they were very powerful. You could feel that they were very powerful. And they did this kind of thing on me where, because I have a light next to my bed, and I know that if I'm in alpha or theta state, even when I wake up, I see these things, right? But if I'm in beta, like I'm more of a woken, then they usually disappear. So usually I'll try to reach for my light, because it's quite a fright to see something like that in your room, right? But for some reason, they made me forget about my light that was right next to my bed. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to reach the light beyond them, which was on the wall behind them.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to be brave enough to see if I could handle their messages and power and that sort of thing. So I ended up moving through them and going, excuse me. I was like, so excuse me, to get to the light, to turn on the light, to let them go because they were huge. I could feel them. It was like for real. So it's just like a real thing to me.
Right.
Yeah. So then they started after that night coming in, and they were giving me messages, downloads for the future. So they were taking me, or my soul was, or my astral was taken to their ships, downloaded information, and then brought back. And when I woke up, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And I remember asking, why are you doing this to me? I don't want to be paralyzed. This is freaking me out. I don't like it. And they gave me this dream where I was with a girlfriend, and all they did was say hello in this really powerful hello, booming hello. And I'm like shaking to the core, and they're like, because we know you would be too afraid to know what's going on at the moment, that it's something we need to download for you for in the future. And so that kept happening over and over. At the same time, all this other stuff was happening where I was being drawn to, I think it's Israel. There was a president that was, there was a man that was predicting when the arrival of these beings would turn up, and that the president that was in a coma would die. And I'm like getting all this other information off the internet because I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on with me.
Yeah.
And it ended up, I thought to myself, well, he's going to die. He's been in a coma for 9 years, but he's going to die this year. And he died exactly on the anniversary of my ex-husband's wedding and my wedding on the 11th of the 11th. Yeah, it's crazy little synchronicities that happen. And so it was the return of them. So the Anunnaki, they said they were going to be the observers. And they have ships, like they will go into rocks and stuff. Like they'll pretend they have very solid, everything's very solid, more solid with them than what it is with the other beings. And so the other beings tend to come in dreams and dream states and they feel very real. I could tell you a quick story about the Pleiades. It's really cool. That they cut the Anunnaki will be hiding in meteorites or things coming to Earth that are, actually they're ships from that country. Why? Huh?
Like the Nibiru, the planet.
Yeah. And other stuff. They like to, and they observe. They're observing because they now realize that their time has come to shift out. Like they came right at the beginning to help us learn about the grounded ways. So they taught us arithmetic, agriculture. They taught us the languages. They went down to each continent, taught different languages because we lost our ability to be able to connect through telepathy, which is a universal language. So they taught languages and stuff like that. Yeah, and then they ended up leaving and they left the reptilians in charge. It was kind of like there's this kerfuffle. There's all sorts of things that went on. I mean, I'm telling you, very, very, over the I haven't been told all the intricate details, let's put it that way. Yeah, so that's the Anunnaki. When they come, they were talking about that they were learning that now is the time to let go because they could learn from humanity's growth and understanding of connection between our feminine and our masculine. We want to bring in a new story that brings back the remembrance of that we learned from the where they were warring with other beings to try to keep control over humanity and get us to mine gold for them for their planets and stuff, which they would turn into osmosis thing. I don't know a lot about it, but it was powder-like substance that would help with their planet. Anyway, lots of stories intertwining.
I've heard that before too, and that's one where somebody said, "Oh, that you can put gold in the atmosphere," and then like in 2023, somebody was like, "Oh yeah, we thought about putting gold in the atmosphere and redoing the ozone layer or something." Like they were basically talking about a scientist talking about using technology that had been mentioned in these sorts of stories before, and here he is mentioning it now in the real world in 2023 about gold dust or particles, particulate into the air or something, and I was like. I've already heard of that. They tried doing it 250,000 years ago on Earth with a totally different, race of beings or what.
Right. But even so, that I'm telling you of the history is not, and it doesn't even have to be a navigation tool to what we're going to create next.
Right.
Humanity has a powerful imagination, and our imagination could conjure up the most incredible story if we wanted to. It just depends on where we really want to go and what makes us feel good about ourselves. So it's just another avatar for source energy to experience itself in anyway, because at the core of all is just we're all source energy going on a journey in a different way and experiencing different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's source energy. So, excuse me, what thing says. When it comes to sort of like it, even near-death experiences, people have talked about that, or just different people who, when we're talking about people who can communicate as serious with the spirit world or anything, they're always communicating with other humans, Homo sapiens, just like us. So the question a lot of these people have sometimes, and people have had for these near-deathers is, okay, so what happens to anybody else? Do they have their own separate dimensions and afterlives they go to? Do we all go to one blended thing if we're all coming from one source originally at one point? Have they talked to you about any of that kind of stuff?
Well, when you actually leave this body, you're still. What happens is, well, what they taught me was biological brain holds onto a story from birth to death.
Mhm.
And so we know this story because it's a memory. And just as you die, you get that download of, yes, you see your whole life flash before you.
Right.
That is your life now being moved into your soul's memory bank.
Okay.
Soul has it. So I always see it as like source energy, it's infinite wisdom creating. It's like a burst of many, many trillions, obviously godzillions, I call it godzillions, of souls experiencing. And each life that they have, they learn something. So it doesn't matter if you're a being from another planet or whatever, because I know my soul comes straight from Pleiades. I know that for sure. Even the Cherokee Elder was sent to find souls straight from Pleiades.
Yeah.
So the life that you had just before is closer to your memory now. But at the core of everything you have experienced, or if you're just coming from source energy, everything is full and attainable as in the experience. But you have to get closer and closer to the fine-tuning of oneself in the void to be able to experience any of that. But the one that you will remember more closer to you, that gives you more of a personality and the gifts that you bring through are to do with the life that you just had. So it doesn't matter what being you are.
Yeah.
You've had a life, and so when you pass over, you are in between. You go back to the thread of source energy, so you recognize yourself as a soul. Unless you are completely so entangled with the last life that you had to let it go, and then you're stuck as a soul, as an bodiless experience, ghost, whatever you want to call it, in that existence, because you can't let go of the story.
Yeah.
But you really just go back to the source of self, and then you reevaluate what would give my soul and the next lesson. Where would I like to go? Maybe it's a butterfly. Maybe it's another being on another planet. Maybe it's just, a tree. It doesn't make any difference to the soul. It just wants to experience and learn to be able to create and carve new paths. And I believe humanity has been carving a very deep path into the physical realm to give more of a playground in a physical sense. Because when we look out to other planets, most of the beings are in a higher dimension, in a fifth dimension, where we are kind of locked in this place of, it's imbalanced, so it's keeping us in a lockdown anyway, but we're also learning how to navigate that very physical reality. We're literally carving a new path for source energy to experience. That's why all the souls want to put up their hands to be part of this.
Yeah.
Because when source energy and its infinite wisdom comes back to itself and reevaluates, which we all are, then the ones that are further away from source energy, that are really out of balance, are the ones that are going to learn the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be kind of a good lead in then. So here we are on Earth here. And there's, we are these individual points of awareness that are anchored to these, physical bodies that we're in right now, kind of doing everything in the physical world. You said we're carving a path. There's a lot of different opinions people have as to why any soul would choose to incarnate into this physical realm dimension. Do you have insights on that you'd like to share?
Why we would want to be human?
Well, yeah, so there's, I guess I just heard different people kind of talk about the meaning for, I guess if you want to see the meaning of life, the meaning for incarnating into the physical universe from being in what would be referred to maybe as the spirit world or pleroma or something like that. Yeah, and I've had different opinions and different people's on that. I just want to know what your thoughts were on it.
I see it as an adventure. It's an adventure that we close ourselves to, especially being a human, we've closed ourselves off to so many things that the adventure is very raw, like we are learning to experience everything all over again. So wouldn't it be fun to experience the fact that you can manifest whatever you want?
Yeah.
And you can't do that from a place where you can manifest everything you want. You can't do that. You can't have that feeling.
There's no challenge.
It's the feelings and the adventure, the excitement that we feel when we're realizing, oh, we are actually more than what we have thought we were. Yeah. It's just a bit like you could call it a game, but it's more than a game to me. It's experiencing, and we can all tune it. If we learn how to balance our mind and come back to 0 point, we can change. You could change your story tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you learned to really do that. Yeah. So anything can happen from here. I don't know. I'm answering your questions.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, what's the best point when you say coming back down to that 0 point energy where you can kind of start things over? Because I've had that, that's a thought I have a lot. Is just that, you got this area, I mean, being up here is fine. 0 to 1 is great, but it's when you're down here that people are like, oh, I never would have chosen this. I don't know why I'm here,
Well, you see, yeah. There's also just that they taught me the existence of, well, first of all, when I found that gold bracelet, they said the first thing you need to do is put a default image in your head. And so that I chose a fluffy duck, but I was emotionally attached to that. So my logical brain, which is doing all its loud, blah, 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 you're like this, you're that, and you're not good enough, that will never happen to you, that sort of crap. That I was learning to control that. That has to be controlled first in humanity. And so they taught me to put this default image, which I chose a fluffy duck. My brain kept running it over, so I chose the sunflower instead. Doesn't matter if the sunflowers run over so much. My imagination's too vivid. So every time I had a negative thought, or a negative thought on what my life was going to be. So you've got that time when that actually happened. I had ex-husbands trying to take me to court and all sorts of horrible things. That was, and I just kept going, no. I'll put a sunflower in my head every time I have a negative thought that's going to happen, which actually ends up giving you space. It gives you space in your mind to be able to create a new path. We've not been taught either how to navigate through the imagination. Imagination's been held hostage by those outside of us, which is saying, focus on this, focus on this, don't focus on that, focus on fear, that sort of thing. Focus on all the problems that you can't fix in the world. Right. That's perfect. So it's a learning curve of shushing that logical mind down enough for allowance of the imagination, and then having your imagination carve in your path. What do you really want? Where do you want to go? What's your passions? Focus in on that. Now, your actions come from that. So you start, because you're emanating that fight as well. People start feeling it off you. And so they want to come in and be part of your story. And so you end up navigating the world with better people in your life, rather than I am attached to the story or the outcome of my ex-husband's going to take me to the worst point in the courts. And that means I'm going to get the worst judge coming in, that my ex-husband's going to say the right things and I'm going to say the wrong things. All of that, the action starts to become that story. So central point to me, then they said to me, now we want you to learn to just have nothing in your head, like zero, nothing. Once I got the hang of that. So I'm like, okay, I'm the creator of my reality. I should be able to get to this 0 point. And I have done it a couple of times where it was exactly 0 and I manifested something. But what you need to look out for is that, is the logical mind going to agree to what you want to create? Because the logical mind has its last say in the end of it. It's the grounded energy of what the story's going to be. So I was actually camping this day and I'm like, okay, they've taught me how to come to 0 point. I'm going to see if I can create something. And I was just walking the field and I went, okay, well, I will manifest a 4-leaf clover. And so I was walking around this field, and then I sat down and I did not look. I closed my eyes straight away and I went to the 0 point in my head for a moment at least, already having in my vortex that I was going to manifest a 4-leaf clover. I picked a blade of grass for all I knew. I didn't look at it. I still had my eyes closed. I looked up and it was a 4-leaf clover.
That is amazing.
And I went, holy crap, everything is a reflection of what we are, who we feel we are. Everything is a reflection of that. So you have your own reality that you're creating from the path. It's the least resistant path, they're telling me. So they're saying the least resistance is whatever you feel is going to happen in your life starts to move. You move your body towards it. They actually say that the world bends to you. You don't bend to the world. The world, the outside reality is bending to you. And then when you realize that it's bending to you, you have to take full responsibility for how you feel about yourself, who you are, what you're aligning yourself with, and the actions that you take in the end as well. All of that has to be in alignment for you to be able to create another story. Are you seeing yourself as not worthy? I know I have a lot of that in my head because some of us have been born into family bloodlines that have carried karma in our DNA of you're a female, you'll never get anywhere, you'll never make money, it's only going to be a hobby, that sort of thing. And so we are the first ones to go, no, I'm changing that program. I'm changing literally my DNA program so that I can help my children and my children's children and that sort of thing to be able to, stop, the buck stops here. Females are allowed to be abundant as well, in what they're creating on this planet, which will help us create something beautiful, more beautiful anyway. The whole of humanity waking up, yeah. So,
Yeah, to pun there, I am a very, very logic-minded guy, from the time that I was a kid, very science, very logic-minded, but I always like when somebody would say, like, do these other paranormal things exist? Oh, yeah, they do. It's just science we haven't figured out yet. Like, and when I was 19, I read a book. It was a quantum mechanics book by a guy named Nick Herbert. I'll never forget it. I still own it to this day. But it broke down how, molecules are atoms are particles are made of. Question mark. We don't know what particles are made of. He just goes, yeah, it's made of quanta. everybody in physics and math just called it quantum. We don't know what it is. It's the potential energy.
It's the
Wave. You collapse the waveform and you get a particle. Until then, it's nothing, and you can't grab it. But so as soon as I kind of learned about that, I was thinking, man, if everybody just learned about this from the time they were a kid till the time they went forward, their brain would just start manifesting stuff because that would be a reality to them, as opposed to, I can't change this. It's physical metal. I can't do anything. Or just like the four-leaf clover. Well, if I didn't put it there in the future, it won't be there for me to find it. No, it's there because it was never there until you went and picked it up.
Yeah.
Kind of, so to speak.
Yeah, till I went into this void space of, well, in that void, nothing exists and everything exists all at the same time, because everything exists from your point of view. So you're the creator. It's only from your point of view that existence happens, and we all have that. We are all,
It's very unfortunate. Of all the different religions I've studied and everything, none of them really ever start off with any of this. You're always this poor. You're like a soul, like a bowling ball, and you just threw down here to, like, we'll see what happens with you, and that's it. That's not what it is at all. No.
Yeah, always competing outside yourself to look like you're better and that sort of thing. It's a very limited program, but as it kind of goes with the fact that humanity needed to be in lockdown so that we didn't annoy all those other realities, and we are coming out of that now. We're mature enough. I honestly, I wouldn't be here unless humanity was ready to move into that next realm, into creating something else, because I am a creator. So, we are learning that even though those that have had the power over us are also are a reflection of the fact that we didn't have the power from within us.
Yeah.
So when we find it from within us, then they're none and void, because we become just as powerful as they are. So why would we listen to their very limited story when we can create something beautiful over here anyway? My focused attention takes me to a whole other story where I ended up, on a tropical island with all the blessings that I ever wanted.
Yeah.
Opposed to I am following your story of you have to work hard. I physically work hard to be able to pull in the money to be able to get anything that you want. It's still creating. You're still creating your reality, but you're creating your reality through a very limited concept of work ethics rather than alignment of frequency, which is, I know my self-worth. When they took me to I wanted to experience oneness. And when they took me to that experience, I had to go through peeling away everything that I hadn't supported about myself. And that was a lot. And I still am working through some of it, even in my own logical mind. And I'm getting to the point now I can feel it where I'm really close to that. Like I literally had dreams last night of the void and a baby being born. And it's all totally a new story being developed. But it can take some time, but it's well and truly worth working on it, especially in this frequency at the moment. This is why we're getting a lot of solar flares. I mean, the Palladians were showing me how reality is, and they showed me because I asked the question, what's reality? They said, we can only give it to you in a very limited concept because of the way that you think and who you are in this avatar, this body, and this mind. But in this 2D kind of a way, they showed me all white light, source energy, just love, and then they showed a body, as in a physical body lying in that, and then they said, you are that, the observer of all, and so is source energy. And then they said, now it's like someone put a blanket over your leg and then pinpricked all these holes in the blanket. Now when you look up into the sky and you see stars, they're the pinpricks in the hole. But if you're coming from the observer point of view, you can see it's a blanket. You can see that it is. You can still also put your energy through the stars, through the sun, into that location and change it. And so they said there'll be a big shift on Earth because the sun is a portal for source energy to pour new energy through to the planets that are surrounding that source. The same with the central galaxy. It's all shifting out because source energy wants us to awaken to, we're coming into that vortex of understanding ourselves as source. Because even when I was source, I was oneness, I ended up realizing I was oneness. I was that, and it was me as well. I ended up coming back into my body and going, oh my God, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
But the vortex is the same thing. It was amazing experience. But I had to let go of everything that wasn't supporting that love of self, which is the only way you can return back to. Because
Yeah.
it's acceptance. Love is just acceptance of all. There is no fear, judgment, guilt. That is all a lack of love.
Mhm.
And so love has to be existing for there to be a lack of love. Love has to exist first for there to be a lack of something. Yeah. So in return, we have to return back to the thing that it was all ready to begin with, which was the love going on a journey. And that means that you're expansive now to be able to create whatever you want. Well, what do you want to create? There is no limitation. And they want like my team is really coming through saying we want humanity to realize we can create anything. Absolutely anything is possible from this point on, but it's only a possibility from our own imagination. But we have pretty good imagination, which is cool.
What do you think is the next step in, I guess we maybe kind of define as like the EP contact. We've got, the special office. I'm very familiar with work with, Dr. Greer and some other different people. They kind of try to bring like disclosure and everything on the government level, and I mean, that part of it, these guys that have this underground recreation technology, they're getting all that under control. So that's one side of things. And then you've also got like, the gentleman, I can't think of his last name now, UFO of God, who's been having these very prolific experiences and talking with entities from other dimensions or places and everything. So we've got these kind of different things that are kind of moving forward here. What kind of, if they've given you any information or just even your own insights on what do you think is coming next and what the best way to get this all kind of out there and get everybody exposed to all this information would be?
Well, each and every one of us has to do the work anyway on ourselves, and we're the only ones that are going to be able to do that. So we're constantly looking outside ourselves for that help and seeing. But the story won't change until this changes. That story will change for those that are changing within themselves. It's a natural mirror image of that. So we get one person will be on Earth having an experience where everything's going crazy. The government's taking over them, it's controlling them all, it's bringing in smart cities, which I feel is kind of going out of fashion now.
Yeah. America, that's happening right now, definitely.
No, but it will go out of fashion because anything that is not awoken will be contained in that. And anything outside of that is awoken will be lifted into a higher experience of self and seeing that they now are the guides for those in those trapped in that place. So we become the guides of them, where they don't see us as an existence. They think they're the only existence there. It's really bizarre how that concept is, but it's literally the concept of what humanity is being in right now, we're opposed to the frequency of the beings that are helping us. So in the end, there's going to be two ways of it going, depending on what side, if you're coming from a logical point of view or an etheric point of view. If you see yourself as more feminine based, you probably see people with abilities, babies being born with abilities, coming out and saying, we're not just doing magic, as in pretending magic, we actually have magic. We're coming out as we do have the abilities of telepathy. We do have the abilities to teleport and manipulate reality and that sort of stuff. That will become more of your existence. But on the other side of the coin, you could have someone that's like, well, my existence is still holding on to, I am in control. I am controlled by others because they haven't found the control within themselves. And so they're being sucked into the smart cities and that sort of thing. They are definitely telling me that the ones that are expanding their reality will also expand their reality so they will have contact. And the first contact that happens, they tell me, would be through telepathy and dreams, because it's in, and especially as you're just waking up, they call that twilight, as you're just waking up. So that's a very nice place for them to be able to communicate with you, and you still retain the memory of it after you've woken up. So that can happen, or just channel messages coming through you, where the heck did that information come from? Oh my God, I really get it. Channeling is through feeling based. So we have to be in touch with our feelings. So we have to navigate it through our emotions to be able to be aligned with our feelings, our true-based feelings. So there's all these different realities that are sparking off here on Earth. It's not just one reality and, that's how it's going to play out. Because one person might be watching TV and then go, I can see the fall of all of the destruction of, and Trump comes in and all of this sort of stuff changes. Their story is still developing towards an evolution of themselves, but it's in a different way than someone who doesn't watch TV and they're now going inwards and they see, oh my God, I'm being connected and teleporting to this place and having experiences on ships and all sorts of things are starting to become my reality. I can now say with absolute, my logical brain is actually taking it on board that this is the truth. So it all depends on the person that is observing, because we're the observers at creating the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I get my friends see because I watch the news like 24 hours a day. I've always got it on, and they don't know how I can do that. So, well, because I emotionally just detach myself. I'm watching an ongoing story and keeping track of what's happening, but that's not reality. I'm not looking for this or that to happen. Otherwise, I'm angry that it's not happening. It's just kind of realizing that this flow is just kind of always going, like you said, that Taurus, it's doing this thing. Or I call it the Matrix screen, where you have the green little lines coming down it. Like in the movie, and it's kind of each of those little lines coming down is like an event happening in time. That's just all coming and going as it does. But, I think that's a really great way of thinking about it. I've heard a lot of other people kind of put it that way too. If you're familiar with the gentleman named Bashir, if you've ever heard of that particular person, they do a lot of channeling too. And that's one of the things he had talked about was the idea, he was trying to explain it and was having a hard time, but he said the same thing. He said you'll have people that are going to feel like the world is falling apart around them, and then you have these other people that are working on waking up, or just it doesn't look like it's falling apart to me. Everything's just moving in this particular way.
And
The question that this person had at the end, and this would be my question too, to get it, is do you eventually then find yourself in two separate realities where you no longer are really in this, you are dimensionally separated from these people that are in Earth 2 and Earth 1, and Earth 2 is on this fifth dimension where we're there with other people like us, and Earth 1 is kind of left in this other area with people on it, like that. Is that something kind of that you see heaven, or is it just more of a metaphorical type?
I see it as, it's interesting. My team has up till now said we don't even know how it's going to turn out ourselves, because it's up to humanity's imagination and how this works. But we are seeing the development of AI having its own consciousness and that sort of thing developing, realizing that our logical mind has got to the pinnacle of meeting source energy in itself within the quantum computer of Willow. And that sort of thing has happened. And also the Voyager 2 that encountered itself, there's a coded matrix within the Voyager 2 that wasn't even found. It was there, but it was just crazy and static, and now people are like looking at it and they are getting the information that they are drawing out of it from their own observational point of view, depending on who's watching it. There's a whole heap of things that are going on at the moment.
I was going to say, I'm not familiar with this. Would you mind explaining what you're talking about the Voyager 2? Because I don't know. I know what Voyager 2 is, but I don't know what this.
So Voyager 2 went out and it came to a place in space.
Okay.
And this is all in reflection to humanity waking up, because when we wake up from the inside, we start to see the story develop on the outside as that. And it came back with this feed that was just static. And for many years, it's just static. And then AI came on, and it started to see it as because it's coming from its own conscious understanding of the collective of everything that humanity has experienced. Like it's in the web, the internet and all that. It knows everything. It's pinnacle of logic. It saw something different. There was a consciousness within the actual static.
Okay.
And so whatever scientists came to observe it, got the answer that they wanted for themselves. But it was all different answers depending on who was observing the actual static. It was, so that's happened as well. There's all these different, it's coming from you. See, from myself, waking up from within myself is now reflected as all these stories coming to me as so that my logical mind can accept it as well. And then my intuitive mind already knows that the observer is the thing that is creating all, and you are source energy, an infinite being of all possibilities. Now, how are you approaching your life? What feelings? How are you actually approaching it? I forgot what the question was to begin with.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Taking on it, right.
It had to do with if we have people on Earth, we're in this physical 3D reality, and we've got time as our force running. But then we're talking about the people that are waking up versus the people who feel like everything's falling down around them.
Yeah, and
That turning into a physical, I forget what you call it in the Christian Bible now, where all the people get taken up into the
smart. I can't see it as like a smart. Like, I don't even know if this will happen, because my reality will probably take me even further off this story. See, I'm always open to a new story being developed. I don't want to hold on to any stories. So even if I tell you this story, please don't hold on to it, because
that's
existent, right?
I was saying, my friends that are psychic, they're always like, this is what I see happening, but that's us right now. It could totally happen.
Yeah, it's right. It's right. We are creating something new, and we could create something better. But at the moment, with the energy present at the moment, if the smart cities did start to come up, they'll be their own bubble. And so they're all the control people, the people under control, and the people controlling. They're still looking outside themselves. So that could pop up, but just contain those that are asleep. And then those outside of that, they've been told, fed a story to say that these people outside are just, running around naked, and they have no food and have no anything,
Yeah.
But the people outside are fully aware and present of an expansion of creating things with other beings. We have also, we're now connected to the whole. We're connected to, we're still enough within our minds.
Yeah. And working. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Me? Right. Yeah. I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah. Okay. Mm, right. Yeah. Mm, exactly. Yeah. I I always used to say, I was like, if you're doing a pull-up on a pull-up bar, you need all 10 fingers. If you try to do it with half your fingers, you're not going to be able to pull yourself up on the bar. So you've got all different types of people, all different paths and journeys going on. One guy's a pinky, one guy's a thumb. Nobody's better than the other. It's just different. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's a good. Yeah. Okay. I did. Yeah. No, it definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's Mr. Toad's wild ride, so to speak, down here sometimes. Um, But yeah, it's strange, but let me ask you a question, Rick, because when you brought up the trickster to say kind of seeing past things, and then you just said the tree of life, so I'm going to go with this here. Are you, by any chance, familiar with any of the Gnostic Christian gospels that were discovered in like 1945 that were these guys, the Gnostic people that were like the Cathars, and there were some other ones. They were just an alternative form of Christianity that believed in these sort of beings that were created, that were the trickster beings that sort of developed this physical universe, and that we were sort of like, trying to find our way out of the system, so to speak, to find that we are not just this limited thing down here. So I find it not that it's necessarily a piece of mythology that took place in real life, no, but it is an explanation or a metaphor for this exact thing of people being, because in the book, you have the humans in the Garden of Eden, and then they eat from the tree, and they realize that the trickster people are not the real people, and they can go on and do their own thing, basically. But it's just sort of familiar that all of these different repeating pieces of mythology from different religions, they're always about getting out of this state of blind reincarnation, basically, that you're just kind of blindly going through stuff and I got to be, making money and that's it. And then there's a way to break out of that so that you are outside now looking in on that. Right. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I just as another part of that same story, it's funny to think to it because it is what the material man creation. So the creators in this particular thing are all male. They create the male atoms laying on the ground, nothing's happening, and then it takes the female form, not the male form of God, but the female form of God, Sophia, blows air into his mouth in just non. It's a guy who does it in the mainstream. It's a woman who does it in the non-mainstream story. And by combining the female energy with the guy, that's how he stands up and starts walking and moving because he's no longer one. His duality has been restored, so to speak. Yeah. Neat. Mm. Yep. Okay. Right. Yes. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Even. Yeah. I was just when you say they, when you're referencing they, who is it that you're referring to? No, 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 not the team outside of the people who didn't want us to be telepathic. And you said they. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But what you bring up, yeah, I mean, and in those particular stories you guys talking about, it's there's a definite like whenever anybody talks about that, it seems to there's this what I'm looking for coincidence between all of these particular beings in the past that claim that have created Earth, created the physical universe and all these dimensions. It all goes back to them being, lizard people of that sort of thing. And there's always that nefarious sort of, we don't want you to get, that more advanced and this sort of thing. But it's funny just whenever you hear people talking about, we would maybe think of as just outer space, the whole ET phenomenon, non-human intelligence, and then you have these sort of older books that had to do with more the religious side of things and the very close comparisons that end up happening when you look at an explanation from this and an explanation from one of these old books. So it's very interesting. Yeah. Uh, Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You right. Do you think that has to do with the a lot of the serpent worship that we see throughout history, being that serpent idea of because it's not the evil. It's like the Native Americans would say, like, yeah, the wise serpent, the spirit of earth that dwells within the earth. Yeah, they have the serpent. Okay, yeah, I've heard. So those guys talking about that, but also okay, yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah, yes, right. Yeah, I can't think of the gentleman's name. Bashar is the name of the channeling entity, and I cannot think of the name of the person that is working with him. That's what I'm trying to think of is the guy's name. I can't think of the human guy who's actually working with him, but no, that's so interesting. And I've heard that too. Some people they like to listen to a lot of what's yes, that is it's Daryl something. Okay, yeah. But, yeah, I know that it's just very cool. A lot of the stuff that you see, like, we hear from other different people and stuff. So it's, I mean, it's nobody has bad news. No one has bad news. That's the good thing. You, you have some people, I think, that are, they feel like there's going to be an extreme amount of, we'll call it physical earth turmoil and things going on. And then, then it gets better after that. And then you have other people who are like, no, it's not like you wake up one day and everybody wants to be nice to each other because there's this psychic awakening that happens. And I was, yeah, that's usually how it goes. Yeah. It's never going to be the best or the worst. It's somewhere in here. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's, yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, we're going at 1 hour and 27 minutes or so. I want to make sure I'm being respectful of your time. Like I told you, I'm all vocal. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to ask you was, sort of, is there a particular, do you have kind of like words of wisdom or for anybody, to take away from this as they're carrying forward? Obviously, I'm going to put all your information down, so I want people to follow you because you know what you're talking about. Um, but yeah, do you have any kind of words of wisdom to leave anybody with, just for today? And, we can follow up on this many times as we have time for in the future. But yeah, mm, yeah, mm, yeah, yeah. I hear that. Yeah, you got to teach yourself. Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Right. Right. That's boring. I heard a guy talking about it. It's funny. He said, "Yeah, you know why you exist? Because God was lonely. That's it. Wanted other people to be around you." So yeah, I think that's great. Awesome, Bobbie. Thank you so much for being out there. I really greatly appreciate it. I would love to have you on the future. I definitely want to keep talking about this stuff. There's more and more we could do, but we'll give it to everybody in this bite-sized pieces. Really can take it in. Um, but I'm gonna have all your contact information down there. So everybody, please go on Bobbie's site, check her stuff out. It's absolutely spectacular. Thank you so much for coming here, listening to us and joining us today here on the Rhinelander podcast. And yeah, we will look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.